This conference will now be recorded.
Hello, and thank you for your interest in helping out with the North Knoxville Warming Center. My name is Don Hanshoe. I'm one of the pastors at Fountain City United Methodist Church, and I'll be your host for this training. If you have not yet already done so, I encourage you to download and view this revision 5 of the training workbook so that you can follow along, make your own notes. And as always, if you have any questions for us related to this training, reach out to us. That information will be shared at the end of this training. So let's jump right in. I'm on the first page. So again, we just want to say thanks for being part of this training with us. The North Knoxville Warming Center will be located at Fountain City United Methodist Church. That's here in the Fountain City area on 212 Hotel Road, just right across from the Fountain City Park and behind the Fountain City Lake. One big special thanks to the Office of Housing and Stability. They have really helped guide us and help us a lot in this, and also to Cokesbury United Methodist Church. A lot of our training has been based on and modeled after their training. So big shout out to them as well. But let's jump right in. If you've not yet done so, I encourage you to sign up. Use this QR code, or you can call us for more information. And that will take you to a way that you can share just some information to let us know you're interested. And we'll put you on an email anytime that the temperature drops below 25 degrees. It's predicted to drop below 25 degrees in the next 3 days. We'll do an all call, and then we'll invite you with a link to help you see specifically where our needs are. And you'll just sign up for that and reply. And then one of our volunteers will be in touch with you following that. And that's how this is going to work. We'll receive notification from about 3 days in advance from the Office of Housing Stability, and they will let us know that there will be a need for us to be open. So it's a pretty quick turnaround. It's really important for us, if you are interested, that it's not just tell somebody hey, let me know if you need help. We actually need you to sign up because there's too many moving parts at the last minute to be able to remember who asked for what. So how to be a volunteer? That's the main way you need to do is sign up. And I just want to remind you that being a volunteer makes a world of difference. This is Mother Teresa says, every small, unselfish act nudges the world into a better place. We are a United Methodist Church. We're a Christian church, and we believe in doing what's right for the common good of our whole community. And even if you don't go to church, you are welcomed at our church to help participate in this. If you are someone who's not a Christian and you don't feel welcome at our church, that's on us. We work really hard to make sure everybody feels welcome. Anybody can participate in stuff like this. So we'd love to talk with you, make sure that you feel welcome and part of this ministry that really has an impact on some of our most vulnerable folks in our community on some of our most dangerous nights between December 15th and February 15th. Um, what makes our warming center different is that we are a United Methodist Church, but truly it's you, your heart and how you do this, your own style of hospitality, and you're wanting to be able to care for those in need, be in community with and collaboration with others who have a similar mindset about helping those in need. That is what makes a difference. You make that difference. So thank you again for your interest. Now we do have some expectations of all of our volunteers. And I'm not going to read over all of these, but we want you to be familiar with these expectations. In essence, our values drive everything. And the value that we all can agree on as we are part of the Warming Center is that we want to do what is good for the common good. We also want to make sure that, that you are seen and that we see you working hard. Uh, be mindful of how you need to take breaks. We're going to celebrate that with you. Nobody gets a gold medal for wearing themselves out and getting burnt out. So make sure you take good care of yourself. We want to also make sure that even regardless of who comes in the door as a volunteer or as a guest, that we have a consistent and fair experience with everybody who comes in. I want to make sure that if you have any challenges, conflicts, difficulties, that we don't have side talk about that. Instead, you'll talk to your captain or talk to one of the staff members, and we will be glad to help resolve that and create a space for reconciliation. Make sure that you understand all these guidelines. We really want to make sure that we're all on the same page so that our focus is on our guests. You can see these other details here. It's really important. We feel like these are very important for you to understand and really embrace to make this work well. So our core values, as we'll express them for this warming center is using the acronym BLESS. We want you to help be part of building the community. We want to love relationships. That is the gift that you can give those who are volunteers and our guests who come in the door is engage in a meaningful relationship with them. But there are some limits in how much information you should share, and we'll get to that in a moment. Make sure that you're safe, that everyone involved is safe, and we want to support growth. We believe that faith-based and evidence-based practices really do make a huge difference in helping people have their next steps to defining the right path for them. We also want to seek equity. The reality is that a lot of folks who have been unhoused have experienced a lot of trauma. We have some opportunities for you to do some on-demand trainings and information about that, just to help you understand what that looks like, and also not to be afraid of when you see that acted out in some way from one of our guests. So here is our outline of what a night will look like when we have when we're active as a shelter. Now, know that there's more detailed information under our shift responsibilities document, and you can find that in the link below and also on the website. But this is a general overview, so you know what you're signing up for. But we'll have like a check-off sheet that volunteers can really kind of walk through when they show up. And when your first time you show up with us, we want you to arrive about 30 minutes early so you can have an on-site training. Make sure that you're completely comfortable before that shift completely arrives and takes responsibility. Also, a lot of folks ask, do we have any kind of security? And the housing of the Stability Housing Office will have an armed security officer present from 8 p.m. to 7:30 a.m. We're not open until 9 p.m. So they're there as folks begin to gather outside and for other necessary tasks, and also to make sure that we can incorporate them in part of our community. We get to know them as well as anybody else. Each night will have a captain, and that captain will be the end-all decision maker. So if there's a uncertainty about how something needs to happen, that captain will make that decision. If the captain is unsure what needs to happen, there's a staff person who will be on call and can be called at any point through the night and can be asked for kind of a backup or a little perspective on what to do in a difficult situation if one was to arise. So some general responsibilities. We have food pickup at CARM at 4 p.m., though we also have some food that's been donated on different nights. So this may or may not be a group that will be active. At 8 o'clock, our setup team will arrive, and it's 4 volunteers is our minimum. We'll probably have a few more to help make sure this goes smoothly and everything gets set up in a timely way. But this is the basics of what you would do if you were inviting folks to your own home. Want to make sure everything's stocked and ready. Everything is set up. Have the cots, about 8 cots ready to receive folks in, so we don't have kind of a backlog. Make sure all the setup for the lock boxes and some snacks are out and the food is out. Those kind of things are ready for folks. Also, the security officer is not a KPD officer, and they'll be providing a level of security for us. However, part of our requirement is to have everyone surrender to a simple bag search and a wand, just like you go if you're going to a football game somewhere in town. They just have to submit to a wand, and they need to surrender any weapons or sharp objects or medications or drugs. There's no judgment in what they surrender. They'll get it all back regardless of what it is, but that needs to be surrendered and locked up during that time. Now, it's also important to know that at 10 o'clock, our doors will close. That means if anyone needs to go outside after 10 o'clock, 10 p.m., they are not allowed to come back in. That creates just an unhealthy and unsafe environment for folks to come in and out throughout the night. So 10 p.m. we close our doors. Folks can stay until they want to stay. They can leave. We can't forcibly make someone stay. But at 6, as we'll talk just here in a second, you'll see that our night shift starts at 12 a.m. And you can see basically they are just making sure everyone is settled and has a great night. The big key is to make sure that we monitor bathrooms for safety, and just any kind of paraphernalia is not left behind, or if someone was to have an overdose, it most likely would happen in the bathroom. So we want to monitor that well. Wake up call begins at 6:30. Folks will be departing from the space at 7 a.m. and everyone needs to be off campus by 7:15. We have other ministries that will be using that space by 8:45, and we just need folks to be exiting completely off our property because some people will start showing up in other vehicles about 7:30, 7:45 to our parking lots. So we just want to make sure everyone's has stepped away at that point to make room for next ministry that begins. From 6:30 to 8:30, that's the cleanup shift. And we take that very seriously because this is a shared space for other ministries. We have a very thorough cleaning procedures, and we'll look at those just in a minute. We'll also, as I mentioned, we'll have one volunteer who will be on call. That is, if someone doesn't show up, forgets to show up, or gets sick, this person is called and said, hey, we need you to show up and fill in this gap for us. We'll always have 2 volunteers, no less than 2 volunteers, plus a security officer on site at any point. And likely more than that. And again, there's some QR codes. You're welcome to share those with friends. A lot of folks say, well, what can I bring? Any kind of things I can bring? Here are some of our items that you can bring. Some folks have asked about coats. If you're going to bring a coat, it probably needs to be synthetic material. It doesn't have to be waterproof, but it wouldn't hurt if it was. Down coats, down bedding, that's not a great alternative for our unhoused neighbors because once that gets wet, it totally loses its ability to keep someone warm. We have an Amazon supply list. There's things you want to click on for that. If folks want to bring other things, stuff that's just that we never can have enough of, are some of these little simple self-contained, shelf-stable items that we can give to our guests to help their situation a little better. Some people want to give financially, and those are also equally appreciated. 100% of your gift is used to support the ministry of the Warming Center and any of our unhoused neighbors that we might have to take some next steps with, and so forth. Now, as a boundary, as a volunteer, you need to prioritize your relationships. Actively listen to folks. What's hard for some volunteers to understand is that you're not there to fix things. Just trust the power of a genuine connection of listening to someone. You're not trying to fix them or fix their situation. Just being heard is a gift in a tremendous way. And we are just not in a situation where we can help in ways other than keeping them warm and pointing them to necessary resources outside of what we can provide that can really help them get on a path to being unhoused. So just remember, not trying to fix anything. And recognize that some folks had really bad experiences with people trying to help them. So just they may just want their space. Some folks may not want to talk at all. Others may want to be really chatty. Some may be difficult to understand because of different reasons. So also maintain personal boundaries. Do not share your personal phone number or social media contacts with folks. That's just for a number of reasons that can get very complicated. You're welcome to share your name with them, and do not share any information you hear about from guests with others unless it's with your captain and it helps us improve ways that we can be responsive to some of our guests. Remember, safety first for you. Never be alone with a guest. It's okay to step aside if you need to talk to a guest and you don't want to wake anybody else. Kind of step to the side, but always remain in line of sight to other volunteers who are there, and respect confidentiality. We mentioned that already. We don't give out money. We don't want you to give out money to folks independently or directly to them. That often makes them more of a victim when they leave. So there's other ways we can help folks. And remember, this is a no judgment zone. We just love them without any condition. We're not trying to leverage them to make a decision for anything other than just to be healthy and safe. And again, I know some of you are so passionate, you want to help, and that's great. Thank you. But self-care, a good caregiver must also be a good care receiver. So make sure that you are not signing up for so many shifts that you've wore yourself out or you've hurt other relationships that are important to you because you've not been able to be present in that. We celebrate you taking time off. So a lot of folks wonder, like, well, I've never helped out with folks who are unhoused before. What does it really look like? What makes someone unhoused? The number one issue that creates the unhoused issues in Knoxville is just rising rent costs. That's the number one thing nationwide, but especially here in Knoxville. And you can understand that. I mean, you probably can have heard that, seen that, read about it here in our Knoxville community. Some other issues that contribute to that is if someone has any number of these things: mental health, physical health issue, they've experienced history of trauma where they have a hard time trusting others or following through on different things, addiction and dependency that is sometimes present, not always present. Some people have been kicked out of their house for different, just really dysfunctional issues that are happening. Some folks may have lost a job, or their employable skills have been eclipsed in some way. Some people might have some kind of legal history, a criminal background that makes it very difficult for them to get housing. And transportation is huge. A lot of folks really struggle with transportation. We will have bus passes provided by the city so that if, following when folks leave our facility and it's still cold outside and the buses are running, we're able to give them bus passes so they can go find another warm place to be, often a library, a 24-hour store, or something like that, a grocery store often they'll go to stay warm and to find some other necessities. But we're not to give folks transportation. Here's some trauma-informed care tips for making connections with folks. And again, you've heard this. It's just see them. Just let them know that you see them. Look them in the eye, not in a glaring way, but treat each person with dignity and respect. Never underestimate just the power of looking at someone and smiling and saying, welcome, anything I can help you with? As you use their name, that's huge. If we can do anything, we can help restore dignity and trust that they will be able to figure out some plans that help them get to a good place. But recognize that some folks don't want to spend time talking. They just want to go lay down and go to sleep. You're not forced to engage with folks. We encourage you some type of engagement, but also recognize that some folks don't want to be spending time that way. Share common interests. If you find out that someone is a sports fan and you happen to have that, or a music fan, you happen to have that same interest, or even if not, just ask some curious questions. I'd be curious to know is a great way to start a question or a conversation with someone. Active listening, instead of trying to listen to someone to solve something, you're just listening to really follow up with a better question. Avoid making promises like, hey, we're going to make sure, don't make a promise like, hey, we're going to make sure you get housing, or hey, we'll make sure you stay warm tomorrow. That may or may not be something we can do. Just be careful about what you promise. But we do want to create a sense of home. I know that's a kind of a catchphrase and maybe a loaded phrase for some, but when they come through the door, we want to make sure that they feel like this is a place that I'm loved, cared for, and I can belong, if only just for the night. So be present in all of this. Just let your fullness come in of who you are, your giftedness of who you are, bear upon the relationships that you have with these other folks. We got these two videos, including this one, that we want you to be aware of. This is a 20-minute video done with Harmony Family Center and the Cokesbury United Methodist Church. It is excellent. Harmony Family Center does a great job. This is very much worth your time. And then also recognizing overdose and how to respond to that is also very important. As a volunteer, we would love for you to be able to be familiar with this. It's a 10-minute video. It helps you understand how to see the signs, how to respond to, what to do if you suspect an overdose. We don't anticipate that. Nobody does, but we want to be extra prepared for it. And this is one way that every volunteer can be prepared to respond to that. This is the video, this training video here, going over this material. Each person, when they come in, will have a volunteer go over these rights and responsibilities. I'm not going to read through these, but the broad brush strokes of this is that everybody who comes in deserves respectful treatment. And we need everybody to have respectful conduct. We need to create a safe space and a caring space and a peaceful atmosphere. There's a lot of chaos and pain in some folks' lives, and we just don't want to add to that. We want to create a safe place for that. Here's some procedures that we have. Our security officer will be right on the spot with any serious issues that come up. But just remember, the biggest thing you can do in an emergency is just stay calm. Folks will feed off of your own anxiety or your own kind of elevated state. So just remain calm and call 911, involve a security officer, and assist responders. And that's a that's a big deal. Our building is complicated. So if we've called 911, it's helpful to have someone out at the road that is waving them into the direction to be able to find us, to find the best door to come to. If it's someone suspected overdose, again, this training here, we want you to be familiar with that. Our security officer probably also will be trained in how to do that. It's a very simple process, but there's some science to it and there's some procedures to it that can make it a more life-saving experience. If someone has behavioral issues, be so surprised at how you can completely change the temperature when you just want to get to know someone's name. Have calm engagement, don't match their anxiety, have calm engagement with them, but also respect their, if they're animated physically or swinging their arms in some way, just maintain a healthy distance, focus on solutions, and know that you don't have to solve something on your own. The security officer will be present, we're right there, and if necessary, we can call 911. We really want to make that a last resort. We want to try to figure out some ways that, as long as everyone's safe, that we can resolve that, invite the person to leave. There's ways to do that without calling 911. When the police are involved, someone has to go to jail. That's just layer upon layer, that it makes things more complicated for some of our unhoused neighbors. And often it's simple misunderstandings. If someone, however, will not follow instructions, will not comply with the rules, that is reason for them to exit. They have to be able to follow the rules because we want to keep everything safe, and so forth. In general, self-care, take a break. If you've just had a moment with someone, feel free just to kind of step over into the kitchen. It's a more private area. It's a guest cannot enter that area. It's kind of a space for you to take a quick break. Just make sure you've communicated that with other volunteers and security officers so they know where you are and if you were needed. Respectful environment, just remember that these are folks who live in our neighborhood. We want to make sure that our engagement with them builds trust over the long term. So just show a lot of dignity in how you work with them. Now, our cleaning procedures, I'm not going to go over it in details. This is not the space for that, but we want you to follow these cleaning procedures. And the biggest thing is that we'll clean our bathrooms and our floors very, very, very well. We have supplies, we have machines that'll help with that, and you'll be trained in how to use those. A lot of it is very simple. Whatever you do in your home, in a similar way, we'll be doing it there. But the bedding that we'll have, you'll be surprised. There'll be some folks who have their own bedding and they won't want to sleep on a cot. They'll want to sleep on the floor using their own bedding. That's fine. We'll just remove the cot for them. They can stay in that spot. But if someone needs a blanket, that is their gift. We give it to them. We're not going to try to launder things. For a number of reasons, we don't want to receive that back. That goes with them. And we'll avoid using the carpeted floor for a number of reasons. But if we did have to use the carpeted floor, then that requires, we will vacuum it anyways and use a cleaner on it. But if we have guests that have to sleep on the floor or have to walk through that floor area, that just has to be very clean. And again, we have some very specific procedures for that. And while you're on shift, and say you got a late night shift and things are very quiet, nothing going on, and you're trying to stay awake, it never hurts to put a little cleaning solution and just wipe down some surfaces in the bathrooms or any of the table areas. That's not a bad idea. I always want you to be safe in the use of chemicals. If you find that you have a reaction to a chemical, please stop using it. We have face shields for folks. We've got gloves for folks. Those kind of things. And again, just to mention again, we're not going to launder stuff. The cleaning cloths and so forth that we use will be disposed for a number of reasons. And there'll be lots of places for you to wash your hands and do those kind of things. And wear gloves as you need to. But reminder that our cleaning has to be done by 8:30 a.m. the following day because we have other ministry needs that will begin to come in soon after that. So ideally by 8:30 or before. We have a procedure here for if there's a power outage and there's no immediate safety threat. We have some things here you want to do, easy to follow. Your captain will know how to do this. Will be familiar with this. We want all volunteers to be familiar with this. We have a large building, so again, if we have to call KUB, we have multiple, one electrical line that comes in, but they might need to come and be on site and inspect if it's something outside. If it's inside, this is where you would call our staff person on call, and they could help navigate, show up, and work through some issues if we had an internal power outage called for some reason. The big thing is make sure that let folks be calm. We'll give them flashlights. We'll have some little lanterns set up so light can be seen, so folks can make their way to the bathroom and move around safely. If there was a severe weather event, we have a process for that as well. And again, you never want, so many folks have devices that they'll notify you if something like that's coming on. Just a big reminder though, a watch is issued when severe weather is possible. A warning is issued when severe weather is occurring. Only when a warning and we're an immediate threat would we need to move to some of the designated areas that are safe, which are these hallways, and folks would crouch or sit on the steps there in the hallway and be mindful of anything that might be above them. That'd be a safe place for them to be till the threat passes. Additional notes for captains: we have an emergency kit. If you felt like you needed to conduct a drill because you felt like that maybe something will happen that night, you're welcome to do so. Make sure all the volunteers, you've got a clear plan about what's going to happen and how to communicate with loved ones if they're concerned about you being out if a storm or something like that was to happen. And where to exit guests. If something happened that we needed to exit guests, which is very unlikely, we would exit them across Hotel Road and to the park, to the nearest shelter. Now, very likely what would happen is our guests would just disperse once they leave the building on their own, and we can't keep them from doing that. But that's where we would go to make sure we have a head count of all of our volunteers. Here's some FAQs. We can't take more than 15 guests. We say 12, but we can take up to 15. Male and female guests are all in the same space, but they are not allowed to be in the same area, like on the same cot or in the same floor space. We talked about emergencies already. And again, these are some resources we have available for them. You can volunteer. We've talked about that already. Make sure that you sign up at a frequency that's healthy for you. The communicating with us is through our coordinator and through the email below. That's the best way to communicate to us and with us, or just call the church. And if you can't make a shift, ideally you've let a coordinator know and they'll get a substitute for you. Or you might, someone else who's already trained, just invite them. Say, hey, can you take my spot? That's a great way to do it too. If you're like, hey, this ministry is great, this is really not where I want to volunteer, I've done it once, this is not my thing, great, we can find other places and ways for you to serve to also help the common good of our unhoused folks. If you want more training, there's some other videos that we can make available to you that are excellent training videos, but they're by request. They're paid for, and we can only give those as a temporary access through a code. So depending on your role, you can just serve up, go ahead and start serving immediately. But one of the big questions we're going to have is like, hey, I've never been to your church before. Where do I go? Here's an aerial map. You'll come in to door number 8, this parking lot right here. To give you context, over here is the Fountain City Lake. Here is the Fountain City Park. And you'd park down in this parking lot here, and you'll come into door 8. There'll be some signs that'll be out here on both roads to let folks know that a warming center is open. So as for contact, and we have some AV that we can use in that space, and there's instructions on how to use that. And when you come in as a volunteer, we need you to sign in the information the time you come in and out. That just to make sure if we had an emergency, we know who is still in the building, and the guests do something very similar, and we'll label anything they surrender to us and return it to them when they leave. Anything that's not claimed will be discarded. And again, thanks. Here's our email, northknoxwarmingcenter@gmail.com. You can also call us at the church office at this number here. We're glad to help you, but thank you so much for giving your attention to this training. We hope you find it very helpful, and we look forward to seeing you sign up soon. Thanks so much.